Well everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPad mini 6 and see how the specific iPad holds up in 2023. Now what's very interesting is this is the latest and greatest iPad from their iPad mini lineup so far. We have not received an iPad mini 7 yet, but there have been some leaks and rumors stating that we could potentially be seeing it this year. Now the iPad mini 5 did come out in 2019, which was 2 years before the mini 6. So if time tells anything, we could potentially be seeing the iPad mini 7 as early as this year, and maybe even as early as this month, who knows. I honestly have no insider information, but that could be something we could be seeing. So if you want to pick up an iPad mini, links will be down in the description. You can get that from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now starting off with the outside of the iPad mini 6, on the front, you can see that we do have this beautiful 8.3 inch liquid retina IPS LCD panel. Now this panel is a fairly high resolution. It's also a pretty big standpoint, I would say, from their mini lineup. This was the first time since the first iPad mini that we got a really big change. The only change we saw from their whole entire iPad mini and their body standpoint was the addition of Touch ID and the little bit better screen. Other than that, they all looked identically the same, and this was the first time we saw even a slight difference. So this was something I was really happy about, and when I look at this specific iPad now, I am really happy they made these types of changes. So the display on the front looks pretty good. It's definitely not the best panel. It's not a 120Hz ProMotion display, so it's still at 60Hz. But I do think this is a pretty good display, and really no matter what you're going to do with it, I think it's going to be perfectly fine for a lot of people out there. Now another massive change for this iPad was that they did give us a USB-C port. They removed the lightning port. I was about to say lightning again. So that's another really awesome thing that Apple did here. They could have easily kept the same lightning port and sold it over and over again, but they also gave us an Apple Pencil 2 support on this iPad as well. They could have easily pulled an iPad 10 and they could have given us Apple Pencil 1 support, then to use a dongle and all that craziness on the iPad 10. Apple did support it natively on the iPad mini 2, so I really like that, and those types of things I think hold up really well and make these iPads hold up and kind of stand the test of time for many years. So definitely I think even like 3 years from now, getting an iPad that still supports Apple Pencil 2, like the iPad mini 6 and even like the 2018 iPad Pro, those types of iPads hold up very well for kind of the long term. Now the flat sides help with the Apple Pencil 2 kind of staying on, so that's always a nice touch. And on the back, we have our aluminum back, the Apple logo right in the center, the camera on the top left corner, and that is kind of it on the outside. So when I feel this iPad and I compare it even against the M2 iPad Pros, I mean, I am really happy with the way Apple approached the iPad mini. It needed a refresh and they finally gave it to us many years after the original iPad mini came out. So in terms of the outside, that kind of covers it up from there. Now in the camera standpoint, the camera on this thing really isn't even that bad. So on the back, you do have a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and on the front you have a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera. So the front camera, some people could argue, is kind of a better camera lens to have than the back camera, but again, I'd rather have a wide angle than just an ultra-wide camera. Now funny enough, on the back we can do 4K at 60, which is very good. That is a very good resolution to have, and although it's only a single camera, it is still a really decent single camera, especially when you consider this thing is on an iPad mini. Now one of the best things Apple kind of implemented back in 2021, if you remember, was the addition of the ultra-wide cameras on the front. Now they have this little kind of face tracking mode that they gave us. I think it's called like Spotlight or Starlight or something like that. And basically, if you're on a FaceTime call or something, the camera will be able to dynamically track you throughout. If you're like, they showcase like if somebody's in the family room or kitchen cooking something, like they'll go ahead and like track them as they're moving. And that was a really nice thing they implemented. I don't even know anybody who uses it. I don't know anybody in my personal life who's ever even talked about this feature, but it is a really nice thing to have. And if that helps Apple to go ahead and start improving the front cameras and just the camera quality on their iPad in general, I'm all for it. It is way more of a feature than not. And you can even do 1080p at 60 frames per second on the front camera of this iPad as well. So when I look at this iPad, I am really happy with the way Apple approached this camera. It's definitely not the best camera of all time, but even about a year and a half, maybe 2 years later from this iPad's release, it's still holding up decently well in that perspective. So in that standpoint, that kind of covers it up there as well. Now in terms of software and longevity, because this iPad pretty much has the same chipset as something like an iPhone 13, you're still going to be getting a long-lasting, iPad supported on this specific device. So probably for the next, 4 or 5 years. And if you think about it, this iPad actually still has the same chipset as the iPhone 14. So there are still a lot of devices out there that Apple can go ahead and kind of lean on. And I do think like with an iPad, like in this caliber, it is still a very good machine. I mean, it still has a lot of power, still has a lot of, capability behind it. And I would kind of say that if you still have something like the iPad mini 6, it's still going to be supported for many, many years, and there is no reason why somebody should go and upgrade. I will say though, with the addition of Apple's latest M1, M2 iPads, those are starting to become more of the ones I would probably recommend more people to buy, just because I feel like Apple is going to start, as they've already done, giving specific features to the M lineup iPads. So those are probably going to be Apple's main focus. But if you don't even really care about that and you're usually using your iPad for kind of more so basic things, you are going to have a perfectly good time with something like the iPad mini 6, such as basically anything you'd ever want to do on an iPad, to be honest. So that kind of covers it up there as well. Now on the performance side, this iPad has that Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 4 gigabytes of RAM. Now this thing internally is almost identically the same as an, iPhone 13, even almost an iPhone 14. It doesn't have as much RAM as the iPhone 14, but when you kind of think about an iPhone 13, iPhone 12 even, those are very fast performing iPhones still. They're only one generation behind, and this thing has the same chipset almost as the iPhone 14. So it is still up there in terms of performance, which is a really nice thing. So if you're doing, let's say, basic kind of things, let's say you're just going through and, you're taking some, notes in class and you're typing up documents and you're taking notes and taking pictures in class or whatever, those types of things are going to be perfectly fine. Even if you're making videos on your iPad, you're filming them, you're making your, script, you're doing all this sort of other stuff, you're going to be perfectly fine in that perspective as well. But even if you go up and you start editing the videos, editing, huge thumbnails on your iPad, and you start typing out the documents there, this is going to be fine there too. But even if you're playing heavy intensive games on this iPad, such as Genshin Impact or Call of Duty Mobile or whatever other game, Minecraft even, you are going to be getting a very good experience on this iPad. And the reason for that is because that Apple A chip inside, the A15, is so good and it's so powerful that you can realistically get a ton of power from this thing without even really having to do too much on it. So I've always looked at this type of iPad and I've always been happy with the way Apple approached it, because it was kind of one of the last iPads to have the A15 Bionic so far. And if you even think about the iPad 10 that just came out a few months ago, that has the Apple A14 Bionic chip. So even that chipset is older than what this one was, and this is an older iPad than that one. So I'll definitely tell you this is a very good performing iPad, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. The battery life on this thing has also been pretty good from what I've seen. It's 19.3 watt hours, so fairly large battery for what its size is capable of. And to be honest, to kind of sum it up, I definitely do think that the iPad mini 6 is a very good iPad, and if you like the size, then I would, by all means go for it. This iPad may not be for everybody, so it may not be the first iPad I would recommend everybody to buy, but it is still a very good iPad, and I do like this iPad a lot. If you want, you can buy an older iPad Air 4 if you want to. That's kind of up there in terms of saving a little bit of money. But I do think for everyone out there, getting something like the iPad Air 4, iPad Air 5, the iPad Pros would be a good option too. But this iPad mini 6, if you're able to go and pick it up, I would highly recommend going for it for sure. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.